Rabbi Manis Friedman. Hello, thank God it's Tuesday. Amazing. 3 years since the world has turned upside down, since we got the lockdowns. They actually happened on March 11th. And pretty much our world has changed tremendously since then. So my question is to you today, how do you see the world today? Do you see that the people became a lot wiser, a lot smarter? How much more are our eyes opened? And basically, as we've started to speak back then, 3 years ago, which you said, which was, I think, was absolutely amazing, eye-opening, is that the good and the evil are separating. So it's been separating for 3 years now. Do we understand after 3 years what is truly evil? What is it? Is it the big red guy with horns, or is it something completely different? How do we identify evil 3 years since it started to reveal itself?
Well, if you want to speak biblically, evil is personified in idolatry. Other gods. Anything that smacks with other gods is the ultimate evil. Because if it's not God, it's already not good. If it's an other god, it's pretty bad. What is the other god of the moment? The entitlement. The evil feels so entitled that they don't even need to justify what they're doing. It's beneath them to even try to make it look legitimate. So that is the evil, and the antidote, of course, is the focus on other, not on self. The glorification of self, that has become the idol. And modern psychology has contributed greatly towards that. There used to be worship of self, like in Greek times, the worship of the body, the worship of the mind. Those were pretty bad. But this is worse. This is the worship of self. You don't have to have a great body and you don't have to have a great mind. As long as it's you, it's fantastic. Because everything about you is fantastic. So the emphasis on the you, even if the you is miserable and suffering and damaged and vulnerable, as long as it's me, it's important. So my problems are important and my successes are important. So those who have problems are completely devastated, they're completely wiped out, they can't function. And those who think they're great, they have no rules, no regulations, they don't have to obey anybody or anything because they're the greatest. So between the two of them, we have a very dysfunctional society.
Rabbi Friedman, that's exactly actually what I would like to speak about. How does that enter people? So I'm learning Tanya right now, so I'm like a very dangerous person to speak with. No, it's an awesome. It's probably the best thing that anybody could possibly learn is Tanya. And the way I'm understanding it is that it's what is evil. Is it like an entity? Is it a separate entity? Is it an energy? How does it enter into people to make them this way, to make them self-serving, to make them egotistical? How does this happen? Because people are really not born this way, and then all of a sudden they're possessed with this energy, let's call it evil energy. Where does it come from, and how does it enter people?
Well, actually, we are born that way, right? We're born selfish. There's no one more selfish than a baby. The problem is that we're not growing up like we used to, so that in our 30s, 40s, and 50s, we're still babies. We're still hung up on the me. And that again is part of the damage of the of the psychology that keeps focusing on yourself. I'm afraid. I feel hurt. I feel insulted. I feel threatened. I feel abandoned. I feel alone. That's the mentality of a 4-year-old. Or everything is mine. Everything's for me. That's a 4-year-old. What he says in Tanya, which is amazing, is that there are two issues. One issue is self-development. What are you feeling? What are you believing? What are you devoted to? Where is your maturity? The other issue, completely independent, is what are you doing? There are things you're supposed to be doing. Why aren't you doing? And the answer might be because I got problems. And Tanya says, problems you work on in your spare time. But you do what you have to do. So we were just talking about this the other day, and I remember this principle among horse riders, cowboys. If you get thrown off a horse or you fall off a horse, you have to get back on immediately or you might never do it again. That's a very good principle. If you failed at something you should be doing, go back and do it. And maybe even do it more, do it better. But don't hesitate, don't wait until your trauma is gone. So, we've discovered insights into the human soul that are brilliant, that are incredibly interesting. We have an id, and we have an ego, and we have a defense system, and we have a hierarchy of needs, and we have brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. That's why you're not doing what you're supposed to do. Never lose sight of what you're supposed to be doing. That's giving up the ship. So, the antidote to the immaturity is simply the fact that we're here for a reason and that we should be doing something regardless of whether we're smart or stupid, whether we're whole or damaged, whether we're worried or not. But do what you got to do. And that, by the way, will make you a lot healthier. So this is the freedom that we're trying to reach or attain, which Pesach represents. It is the festival of our liberation, of our freedom. Not freedom from slavery, freedom from Egypt, which is different. Freedom from slavery, everybody understands and everybody agrees and everybody demands. Nobody wants to be enslaved. But the exodus from Egypt, not from the slavery, that represents the freedom and the exodus from self-imposed limits. That can be even more devastating than the externally imposed. So as we celebrate Pesach, we have the opportunity to really step out of the things that limit us. And what is the thing that limits us the most? this immature hang up on myself. So yes, you have problems, and yes, but do what you got to do, and then in your free time, work on self-improvement. But self-improvement is not life. Life is doing what you need to be doing. And that mostly is directed at others. Who needs you? What are you needed for? What is your contribution? Because if you don't make that contribution, somebody's going to suffer besides you.
Do we now, 3 years later, understand the difference between good and evil? Because it seems like our perception of the world 3 years ago was extremely different than it is right now.
So here's what the painful transition. We have to become more aware and more familiar with right and wrong, because for many years, that was not the issue. The issue was mentally or emotionally healthy or unhealthy. Parents' biggest concern was that their children should be normal, that their children should be emotionally stable and healthy and happy. Right and wrong was neglected terribly. And primarily in the schools, in the educational systems, there was no right and wrong. There was only the self. Are you comfortable? Are you threatened? Are you triggered? Are you suffering from low self-esteem, high self-esteem? That whole thing is such a disease. If you have high self-esteem, do you still have to behave yourself? Or can you do whatever you want? Because you have high self-esteem. And if you have low self-esteem, can you just quit and not do anything and be useless? No. See, that's right and wrong. But nobody thought in those terms. So now the subject of right and wrong is unfamiliar. Like, we have to relearn that whole thing and get into the habit of thinking right, wrong, good, bad. We're getting there. I just read a statistic in a magazine, secular magazine. One of the results of COVID is that the divorce rate went down 12%. I think it was for people over 50, couples over 50 years old. Divorce rate went down by 12%. Everybody was predicting it would go up through the roof. It went down. Couples report happier relationships, happier marriages than before COVID. So the fact is that we're getting better, but we're not very articulate or intelligent about it. We don't know how to explain it. We don't know how to talk about it. We've forgotten the vocabulary of morality. Everything always comes back to, how do you feel? I feel like I should do something. That's what I feel like. So the evil is definitely out of control. No, they're out of control. Not we can't control them. They can't control themselves. They're out of control. And so they're going to, I've been saying this for a while already, they're going to implode. They're going to blow themselves up. They are out of control. They can't stop. So it'll be sad, but at least we know it's coming.
Rabbi Friedman, this is a very interesting thing that you're saying. We have been saying they, them, whatever pronouns they prefer, whatever it is, but we keep on saying that it's them, it's there, it's someone out there. And I'm sorry, I'm beginning to feel like there's no them. They're just basically possessed with it. This is the revelation that I'm getting. Maybe I'm already on the brink of insanity, sounding the way I'm sounding. I don't even care anymore. But realistically, it seems like it's an entity, and whoever is doing whatever they're doing, they're just possessed with this entity. Is there any truth to what I'm thinking?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There is a mass insanity. There's always been, but we always had a name for it. It was a religion, it was a political system, it was the worship of some individual. Now it's very vague, as you say. There's no who are you pointing to? Who? The figures that we do point to are not convincing. Like Putin is the root of all evil in the world? I don't think so. Yeah, so there is this spirit of insanity that's, but it's expressing itself in the language of psychology. The freedom of the individual to be what they are, regardless of what they are. That's compared to past evils, it's a very embarrassing kind of insanity. Like, in years from now, they're going to be writing books about history, and they're going to say the Greeks had a philosophy, they worshipped the body, and that, and people will say, "Wow, that's wrong." But what are they going to say about our generation? What did we do? We were infants. So embarrassing. Our evil is just, it's neglect. We just never grew up. There isn't even a book to write about it. It's too embarrassing. And that's why it doesn't work, and it doesn't pay to fight this evil. What are you fighting, a 4-year-old? You're arguing with a 4-year-old. You're demanding wisdom from a 4-year-old. You're just embarrassing yourself. You're lowering yourself to that level. You just have to start doing good. More good, more good, more good. That's the only solution. And in a way, that's kind of good news. You don't have to wait until we defeat the evil before you can do good. Just do good. And that's catching on. People are thinking that way. Let's just do good.
What I've noticed lately, I think everybody is just puzzled about what is going on in the world. Everybody is, it's like we're pretty much in the same state we were when God was bringing us out of Egypt. There's not much we can do. We just have to allow God to do his job, because it seems like there is a war going on, but we're not the ones fighting it. We're just kind of like sitting it out and trying to be decent while we're doing that. that seems to be everybody's opinion of religious, whether they're religious or not, but seems to be the opinion of people, like, what's going on? Not much we can do. Is that a good attitude to take at this particular time? Or is there a better one?
I think it's fine. But look at the difference. In Egypt, they were building pyramids, and we can't figure out how they did it. They were so sophisticated, not only for their time, they were more sophisticated in science and in wisdom. The Egyptians were more sophisticated than we are today. We have more technology, but they were the original brilliant people. And we were supposed to ignore that, reject all of that because it was godless. What are we fighting today? Today we're trying to convince kids, the good people, the healthy people, are trying to convince kids that their father cannot get pregnant. This is so embarrassing. This is the debate. It's not how do you build a pyramid. It's, can a man get pregnant? No, he can't. Oh, yeah, he can. Okay, I'm not going into this conversation. It's too embarrassing. So, again, the evil is not as scary, but it is far more insulting and humiliating that we have to engage in this conversation. And now I'm starting to think we've been engaging in stupid conversation for a long time. Like, are we descendants of monkeys? We debated it. We actually debated that. Like there were two opinions, two sides. It's embarrassing. We actually fell into that trap. It's like and now we're debating whether a man can be pregnant. I mean, if we come from monkeys, or somebody said, who was it? I forget. Somebody said, an atheist is not somebody who believes nothing. An atheist is someone who will believe anything as long as it's not God. So they'll believe that we came from monkeys. They'll believe that women can be men and men can be women and a man can get pregnant, and it's just so not believing in God leaves you so vulnerable to believing the most ridiculous, nonsensical, and in the name of science. It's just too funny.
Rabbi Friedman, I don't want to end this show without speaking about something else very important that I was planning to speak to you today about. So we're pretty much there in being able to tell right from wrong. We were confused for many years, centuries, whatever this evil has been doing a good number on us, playing tricks on us, making us believe certain things, like you just said, the Darwin's theory and men having babies, and I'm sure there were other stuff way beforehand whenever people are still buying it. It's okay, we're not buying it anymore. But then that leads us to the next grand step, which is the redemption, which is full redemption. Then the question is, what is this full redemption? I think we're becoming a little bit more clear on that as well. But at the same time, I still think it's pretty vague idea for a lot of people. I know people are leaning towards it. They're beginning to think it's a good idea, something. We need something else. We don't want this anymore. So we're looking forward to something changing, some changes. But at the same time, are we grasping the idea of what it truly is or will be?
slowly, slowly, more and more, in general, the idea that we're here to serve, not to self-improve. We're here to serve. And we can serve even without self-improvement. No conditions on goodness. You got to do good even if you're not good. Why should anybody else suffer because you're not good? Why should anybody wait for you to become good? It's not right. So you got to do good whether you're good or not. That is so healthy. That's so practical. It's so doable. And that's what people are waking up to. I don't want to hear about my problems anymore. Give me a plan. What should I do? What? I'm ready. What should I do? What you should do is look around and see who needs you. Your family, your children, your spouse, your parents, your community, your creator. So let's get busy. And don't be too particular about which goodness you're going to practice. See what's there, what is more urgent or closer to home. So without turning inwards to your family and becoming hermits together in your house, if somebody in the family needs your attention, needs a favor, needs an encouragement or whatever, start with that. Don't limit yourself to that. But it's certainly a good place to begin. And then look around in the community. Your neighbors, your co-workers. Let's start making life better. And it doesn't have to be dramatic. Don't save the whales or the planet. Be nice to the person next door. It's a greater accomplishment than saving the planet.
Amazing plan, Rabbi Friedman. I hope everybody wrote it down and will start putting it in their daily activities, practicing it. Rabbi Friedman, we're so close to the great holiday of Passover. Realistically, it's less than 2 weeks away, much less than 2 weeks away. And is there anything this year that we should be, based on everything that we have learned lately, is there anything that we should be doing differently, thinking differently, preparing differently, observing differently? Is it a holiday just for the Jewish people, or is it a holiday for the whole world? Can you just start us on that path?
Well, it's definitely a Jewish experience. We came out of slavery. We came out of Egypt. We received the Torah. Yes, we're celebrating who we are. And that's important for the world. It's important for the world that Jews be Jewish. Because if Jews are not Jewish, then nothing is right with the world, and our last hope is gone. So this year, we should do a little more in two directions. One is get rid of the leavened foods from your diet for 8 days. And the other is make sure that everyone goes to a Seder and has a piece of matzah at the right time and the right amount and fulfills that mitzvah. So if you know somebody who doesn't usually have a Seder, see what you can do to get them invited to your Seder, to a community Seder, to a Chabad house Seder. If you know somebody who doesn't have matzah because it's really expensive,
The bread of the poor.
Right? That poor bread has become very expensive. If you can help out, that people should be able to have matzah at least for the first 2 days of Yom Tov, that would be great. And it's not all or nothing. It's not all or nothing. A person says, I don't observe Pesach. Can you at least not eat pizza for 8 days? Because it is Pesach, and you should be involved in some way to some degree. So making a commitment for Pesach, I don't eat pizza. That is significant. You're telling God that you're involved, you're listening, you're doing what you can. That's big. If you can avoid bread altogether, because it has gluten and stuff, it isn't so healthy to begin with. So for 8 days, avoid all bread, rolls, buns, and pizza. That's fantastic. Does that mean you're keeping it 100%? No, but you're doing a lot. Then there's the idea of selling your chametz. That's another, because we're not supposed to own or possess chametz for those 8 days. So what do we do with our entire pantry? You sell it. You go to a rabbi, you sign a contract, and he sells the chametz for you. So that's the project. Call the rabbi, call the synagogue, call the Chabad house, find out how, where, when, and get involved. Do Pesach to whatever degree you're able to, and every effort counts. So during those 8 days, our job is to make the world more Pesachtic.
Friedman, amazing. Thank you so much. This hour is always so enlightening and brings so much clarity and sanity. Sanity is pretty much what we need most these days, and we appreciate your being on top of our sanity with everything that you do on your YouTube channel and during your VIP classes, which are so amazing and important. And I certainly hope more people will join in, and people they're joining in. The good news is, you always say to share the good news. Well, the ladies' Torah class that I attend on Wednesday has grown 5 times since the pandemic. So, yes, I was late for 10 minutes last week, and I didn't have a seat, and I was very excited about that. So,
wow. Yeah, there's a guy, Herman Wouk, wrote a book called This Is My God. And he makes an interesting argument. He says, okay, maybe what really happened at Mount Sinai was a volcano erupting. And that was frightening and awesome, and maybe. But you got to admit, that was the only time a volcano erupted into a moral code. Now, this is the first time that a pandemic erupted into goodness.
Yeah.
But that's what happened.
Rabbi Friedman, thank you so much. Thank you for this light and this goodness and everything you do for the world on a daily basis. And we certainly here at Radio RUSA appreciate every second you allocate for us. It's priceless. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure to talk about sanity, and particularly what's going on in Israel.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about insanity.
Yeah.
It's so insane. It's so personal. It's so petty. It's so unnecessary. And it's scary.
Yeah.
So if you have any influence and anyone in Israel, we have to let people know crazy is not acceptable.
Rabbi Friedman,
don't be crazy.
maybe that is something we should allocate the whole show to next week, because this is probably the most important topic there is. So again, thank you so much for this time and for everything that you do for the world. Thank you. Until next week. Thank you, Rabbi Friedman.